Hey guys, welcome back to Star Wars Timeline. My name is Ben. Once again, I'm super happy to bring back Michelle Nooney. We spoke the last time. We talked about the art community in Wichita, Kansas, where you're from, where you started your art. We talk about all the accolades, including the People's Choice Awards, and a lot more that you've received. We spoke about your pieces of art now being in private collections, like Dan Cook, Salma Blair, and Andy Woodhull. And we talk about different subject matters, generally what type of art pieces that you make, the kind of like inspirations that you had, your journey to art, how you started, how your family supported. So I'm once again very happy to have you back, Michelle. Please tell us what's the latest. How are you feeling?
I'm good. Thank you for having me back. It's been what, probably almost a year since we've talked,
Almost, yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. How time has flown.
it's
And
crazy.
I've actually created a lot more Star Wars art this year. I think in due part because I was on your podcast.
Mhm.
And so that's helped got my name out there and everything like that. So it's just been fun.
Wait, really? I'm still like so growing. I'm so preoccupied with just throwing stuff out there on my YouTube channel. I don't even know how people interact with it or what they actually get to see outside of the actual, views on the YouTube. Or once in the blue, you get a comment. And I'm like, okay, all right. So at least people are checking my stuff out, especially
Yeah.
podcasts. But
Uh-huh.
really? I'm
Yes,
surprised.
of course. Of course. So
Okay.
this has really helped.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear it because, I always feel as somebody who's trained formally in art myself that hey,
Mhm.
we gotta prop our Star Wars community artists out there, all the people who officially worked on it, who produced actual work for Star Wars like illustrations and so forth, and people who also work as a freelance artist and delight Star Wars fans around the world, what you do. And you go obviously
Right.
outside of Star Wars. We'll talk a little bit about that as well, but it's just nice to see that it's all the people that were involved with George Lucas who helped bring his vision to life, including artists.
Right. And I just feel fortunate to be able to be a part of this community and to be able to be recognized a little bit, for what I do.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you to the
No.
moon and
No, I'm
back.
I'm super I'm super happy to have you on, seriously. And I wanted to get us started off on the big segment of our podcast and talk about commission art in general.
Sure.
The first question I wanted to ask you is, when the new smash hit TV show arrives or a feature film, do you anticipate how many requests you'll get from fans?
Yes. Honestly, probably a couple months before the show starts, I'll
Hmm.
start getting some requests in. But then as the show is going, then they really start filtering in.
Mm. So,
So I'm actually able to do something prior to the show coming out or during the show as it comes out.
that's really, really interesting, right? Because now all of the movie trailers and all the advertising campaigns come into play. They sort of, in a way, feed you, right? Because before even all the Rotten Tomatoes and all the critic reviews comes out, the people's excitement really what drives, like, hey, this show looks really, really cool. I want a commission from Michelle. I want a new, Darth Vader, whatnot figure to be
Right.
painted for my room or something like that, right?
Right, exactly. And I think that's what's helped me because I've been so immersed in my pet portraits that
Right.
when these new shows pop out, then it actually is very refreshing because then I can just step away from that. And these are actually my fun. I mean, not that I don't love drawing pets, but
Hmm.
I started getting noticed because I started drawing the Star Wars art because it was a way to do a funsy for
Hmm.
myself. And that's how I started being noticed. So
Yeah.
it's actually, yeah, ask me to do it. Please ask me to do it.
Yeah, and also it also in a way expands your portfolio because I always felt that artists thrive on the edge of that comfort zone, and sometimes there's maybe a new intellectual property that comes out that you've never heard before or just resurrected from the 80s, like let's say Gremlins, a new movie comes out, or as the case is with Ghostbusters happened, a new movie came out, right? And now it's something that you've never created artwork for before, like, ooh, how do I draw ghosts? Or now I have to put
Right.
like a little car or little kids with new costumes that represent Ghostbusters. How do I figure this thing out? So inadvertently, you're sort of in a way forced to think outside the box. And like now I have to create all this kind of art I didn't do before, and it helps you out in that way too.
Oh, yes. And then, in fact, I just have a new request right now
Hmm.
is to put a little kid face on Obi-Wan body. So I'm having to actually take Photoshop and put two images together to try to create this reference.
Uh,
And I've never drawn anything like that before. So that will be totally completely new experience for me.
that's interesting. But
Right?
see now, yeah, that's definitely cool. It's well, once again, it's I like that. It's like because it's always like a big dark room, and the artist has to like drop in the dark and figure this thing out. And there's a moment of
Right.
angst there, like, oh, how do I do this? I haven't done this before. And then, aha, eureka! Now I know how to do this. You feel more confident. Um,
Right.
but now now the show, let's say, in question comes out, and sometimes it doesn't do well. Sometimes it doesn't get critical acclaim. Sometimes it's an amazing show, like for example Firefly, but it just wasn't in the right moment, and it just they have to cut it after first season. So how much of a intellectual property's popularity dictate how much work do you get? Do you ever get commissions from people who get stuff from from lesser known franchises?
Um, well, actually, I have only been, it's Marvel or Star Wars.
Mm,
And when prior to the Book of Boba Fett coming out, I was like, I'm so hyped. I'm so pumped,
hmm.
because we've been waiting for this for so many years, just can't wait to see it. Then it happened. And then I did a portrait of him, and it just was not as popular as I was hoping because of the show did not do that good. You know what I
Oh
mean?
wow.
Yeah.
That's really weird because the fans that I interact with, on the Facebook and on social media, there's a lot of fans out there. It seems like, and they're saying, "Oh, I don't want all that cerebral stuff. It's just I want guns blazing. I like that kind of
Uh-huh.
show."
Yeah, I've come mixed reviews on it. At first there was so much hype and we were anticipating this and it was going to be cool. And
Hmm.
then I think when they came out with that little Vespa scene or whatever, the fire, I was, it didn't, it
Mm,
didn't do good for a lot of people, at least that come in contact with me.
yeah,
And so I didn't do very well with the Boba Fett one, but,
yeah.
uh,
It's I just had this Twitter super discussion with very heated, very passionate from my side, from the opposite side, that I argue that art is a shared experience. It doesn't just belong to the, and you as an artist can speak to that, and please feel free to counter me if you feel completely opposite. I just always felt that yes, George Lucas is the creator, yes, Peter Jackson brought Lord of the Rings to life, but it's actually Tolkien's work. But it's actually us as community as well, as how the culture receives it, how we interact with it, how it endures throughout the decades, that really makes it what it is. Otherwise,
right.
if George Lucas created Star Wars and he just showed it to his family in a theater, say, I think it's gonna flop, I'm never gonna release it in theaters, that's not art. Who is it speaking to?
Right. It truly is the fans that bring it alive,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
And I have encountered so many passionate Star Wars fans, and it's really cool, and their belief system, because you're getting new fans that are just coming into it, and then you've got the OG fans
Right.
that have always been. And so this melding of the two worlds, I mean, even with, Andor coming out, and you've seen, the Rogue One side, it's really cool how they're going together and they're trying to build it together. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, and regardless of age, everybody likes to take ownership of it and say, like, "Oh, this is what Star Wars
Right.
is. This is what it means to me."
Right.
And these characters were done right, and now this is not in line. I find it's okay. I think it's okay to have all that passion so long that you can respect the alternative point of view.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
Talking about your clients, about people who enjoy all of these commissions, I was curious, how specific are their requests, like talking about the detailing of the subject itself, or what they want in the background to happen, or how they want the composition to go, how specific people get with you?
Well, for instance, this R2D2 and Grogu piece that I have behind me, that was actually a request from a client of mine that actually rebuilds R2s. So
Hmm.
that is actually his R2, and that is his sideshow Grogu that he
Hmm.
took a portrait of. And so pretty much what I end up doing is if they can send me a photo of what they want, then I can tweak it in Photoshop, make some of the contrasts and lighting pop out, but that's
Hmm.
usually what I do. Or if they have a concept of an idea, I had another person come up to me and they wanted a Hoth scene,
Hmm.
but they didn't want the typical Hoth scene. They had requests of some AT-ATs in it, and they wanted some rebels running, and they wanted the
Hmm.
Millennium Falcon going out. And so this wasn't even in the movie. So then I had to go get screenshots, get different things, and place them in and create
Hmm.
from scratch a brand new Hoth scene. And that pretty much was very cool because I can honestly say that that's not out there. That's not in the, that is something that I
That's
actually like.
original. Yeah.
Yes, it's very original. I love doing that. So
Yeah.
that was fun.
When I was a kid, I used to frown on like references, and if this drawing or this painting looks like it's the counterpart photo, as a kid, I used to be such a snob. But then I
Right.
understood all the craftsmanship and understanding how the lights play with it, how you sculpt with the light. So much goes into it that I learned to respect it. But you're absolutely right. When you create something, a composition of your own, I guess the reason I asked that question is I'm trying to think outside of my own frame of mind and think, well, there are people out there who are less visually articulate and they just don't know how to verbalize exactly what they want. They're not that versed like with artistic lingo, like
Sure.
compositional or
Sure.
vanishing points. Like sometimes people just come to you with words, right? And they describe what they
Sure.
want.
Oh yeah. And so that gentleman, he actually said, "Hey, I like this," and he sent me something. Then I was like, I can't do that because that's somebody else's work.
Hmm.
So then I'm going to recreate it myself. But then he also said, okay, but then can you add this? And he kind of
Hmm.
threw some things at me, and I'm like, sure. And then was able to make that specifically for him.
Hmm.
So that was ended up cool, which I also need to add to my fee, Photoshop fee.
No, of course, yeah, yeah. It's the
Right.
brainstorming process. You're already involved with the piece, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Exactly.
That's kind of fun. You guys are like throwing ideas around and they telling you what you want. That's cool.
Right. And then there's some things that I have to actually really do some hardcore research for in order to get something that looks
Right.
appropriate because they'll say, well, I want this snarling or, and I'm like, okay, what does that look like? And, and
Mm,
have to figure out what that would actually look like. So that's
yeah.
pretty fun.
Michelle, you're actually reading my mind. You're already like translating literally into the next question I have, which I wanted you to just elaborate a little bit on the preliminary process. Now you got your commission in. Okay, it's time to begin the work. What is involved? Are there any kind of like study sketches or color studies that you're taking photographs or perhaps a frame from the movie? You said like you know how to manipulate Photoshop or maybe even like reference photos that you take from the internet.
Yes. So basically, what I end up doing is when the client presents me with an idea or something like that, then I go to, the internet and I will, look at screenshots, for instance, movie stills, and try to see if I can't piece something together for them. Or it actually might be, well, I want this. And so I'll get a screenshot from the show and then I will, print that off, you know, to the specific size that they want, and then I will get transfer paper out, and then I will use that to help guide the lines on my paper, and then I'll look at it, and I have all my drawers here color coded, and I'll
Hmm.
go through there and pick out the colors that I think are pretty much needed for it because all the colors are up here. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not an app, at least that I have found, that
Yeah.
says, okay, you do this color, and this color. So
That's why digital tools and AI will never be able to replicate what people do. The kind of soul that you put to it, the energy, that electricity that runs from your mind into the hand, into the pencil, onto the paper, it's I mean, more and more, once again, I also used to frown on digital art, like
Hmm.
digital painting, literally. Like,
Right.
okay, these people are saying that they were formally trained in actual academia. They went to France to study somewhere, but all you do is paint on Wacom board, like on digital board, and these are not real oils you're throwing on the canvas. You're not a real artist. And then,
Right.
and then I had paused. I'm like, hold on a second. I love video games. All of that is digital art. None of it ever
Right.
existed. That's all done on the computer. And once again, it's a moment of awakening. I'm saying, oh, so like you literally like pointed to your head. This is where art begins. It's no matter
Right.
what your tools are, it's in your mind, right?
Right. Exactly. And I think with the AI that's coming out, a lot of artists are kind of feeling threatened with
Right.
that because they're like, well, we're out of business, you know. But this AI is actually going out and doing the same thing that artists are doing, and they are getting copyright or, copyright free images,
Hmm.
and they're putting together their own mix, just like an artist would get inspiration and putting that together too. The only thing that I have a question of is that I think that it would get lost, the art of actually putting something pencil to paper. That's
Yeah.
the only thing I don't want to get lost in this whole thing.
I think once again, my personal point of view, maybe you and I or I specifically, I'm like a dinosaur who just is stuck thinking in one particular way. I was just
Right.
finished watching the Lights and Magic documentary on Disney Plus on the history of ILM,
Yeah.
how
Right.
amazing it was, and how they were always showing you that no matter how technology graduates to a new level and you get all these new digital tools, you still have to go and reference back. Like, for example, when I was studying animation at School of Visual Arts, and we had people from Pixar come over and give
Oh,
lectures
wow.
in our school, and then we went to Pixar Museum and saw their pieces. All of their digital animators are formally trained in traditional animation. They all know
I
how
think,
to draw. They
yeah.
teach them. They have like sculpting courses. So it's once again, it's the human ingenuity and the heart and soul, and also inspiration. Because I can't imagine a person sitting at Google with his new AI application and saying, "Well, I want it to look like this painting, that painting." You'll never get the results that you want. You got to come to Michelle, and she's like,
Right.
I know what you want, but you know what? I'm gonna actually improve on your concept. What if I put a Ahsoka over here, or little baby Yoda over there, like, and people just explode and say, "Oh, you're making it so much more
Right.
better." It's the human
Right.
interaction component.
Right. You have to be formally trained in how art works. I don't think you can just, I mean, there are some rules, I think,
Hmm. Hmm.
that you have to know. And I appreciate digital art,
Right.
but I am such a hands-on type. I like the feel, I like the smell,
Hmm.
all of that. And that I know that my two fingers actually smudged and, did all that type of work. To me, it's very fulfilling.
Hmm. It's a very
But
meditative state, almost like an alchemical process happening. When I
yes,
used to draw 5 6 hours a day, like
right.
figure drawing, and you have the model posing for you, and you see how she's getting tired, and you see how
Yes.
the mechanics of the human body where she can't hold the pose for more than 20
Right.
minutes, and you get appreciation for that. And then at
Yep.
one point, you kind of like transcend your own body, and you see like your hand is just doing this, and you're no longer concerned with the final rendering, with the result, with where the shadow falls. You're just hacking away at it.
Yep. Exactly. You get that. You get
I
it.
feel I feel honored. I haven't drawn for years. Like all of my stuff I do is just like a Wacom board and graphic design. That's what it involves. But talk about for a minute also about that final stretch that now the piece is done. You've done your commission. You're here to submit it. What is your feeling? What is the biggest reward when you're submitting that piece to your client?
Oh, when I'm the type of person that likes to show progress pictures as I go
Hmm.
to my client. And so a lot of times well, it just depends on the client. Sometimes I get a client that's like, "Oh my God, this looks incredible."
Yeah.
They can't wait to get it. I get some that are like, "You know what? I don't want to see it. Just show me at the end." Or I get the ones that are the type A's that are say, make sure that you have this and don't forget this. And why are you using that? And and I sometimes I say to them, you hired me because of what I do. You got to trust the process,
Yeah.
right? And when I get, so a lot of times when I'm posting this and showing him, I could get that instant feedback. So I know that I'm on the right track. Now, I used to be the type of person that would be like, do an underlayer first of
Hmm.
everything and then show it. And then they couldn't grasp the concept. Now, what I do is I start and I kind of complete a section and
Hmm.
complete a section and complete a section and complete. So that way they're understanding, oh, okay. And it also allows for me to feel like I'm on the right track. I'm progressing as I need to go. And it kind of gives me that little I need to go to that next section.
Yeah.
So,
And it also, I figured when I see you post things on social media, it's such an boon to social media feed because we see your work incrementally. And I think the most exciting thing, especially for fans out there who, once again, who are not artistically inclined and don't understand everything involved with the process, seeing pieces of it that already show a glimpse into the final result, the end result, like,
yes.
oh my god, when you were doing that Mandalorian painting,
Uh-huh.
and okay, I know what the process is, but still seeing you like almost carving away this statue from a piece of basalt, and we see like, oh, that's his helmet. I can't wait to see when you're gonna put the reflections in that chrome. Like, oh, what's gonna happen in the background? How much detail she's gonna. The anticipation of it is just mind blowing. It is so
Yes.
successful, and I think you should pursue it. It's like just give people hints of what is going on. It's like, oh my god, this is really cool.
Right. And
Yeah.
I think that feedback, that instant feedback that I get from people is also very encouraging and
Hmm.
then allows me to get pumped and then I'm psyched into it and then I, can go into it. But then there are some pieces that are so big and so time consuming that I actually have to, even though I'm getting the good positive feedback, I have to put those aside because my brain is spent. So then
Right.
I'll start on a funsy piece
Hmm.
that allows me to refresh my eyes. And then when I go back to it, then I can look at it with new eyes. And then I'm like, oh, I didn't see that. I didn't get that color right. And then
Hmm.
I can go back on it again. Now, sometimes a client worries that I'll start a funsy piece and they're like, but what about my work?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you got to trust that you don't want me to finish it with tired eyes. You definitely don't want me to do that. So they
Yeah.
understand. I
Yeah.
have a lot of
Just
understanding.
like you don't want a guy rushing a guy doing your floors, you don't want to rush a person doing your painting because yeah, you might get it quicker, but if it's like half the impact, it's like, ah man, that's not money well
Exactly.
spent. Um,
Exactly.
and so I wanted to just dive a little bit deeper into that. I guess to call it our next segment of the podcast, if you will, just talking about this moment, this piece of your professional work interacting with people, with clients. What are some of the roadblocks working as a freelancer?
Well, when you do fan art, I think some of the roadblocks are the copyright issues that you come with. So if you are not a licensed artist, I think
Hmm.
that's kind of where I have gotten into some issues there. So I make sure now that everything that I do is completely like screenshot something from the movie.
Mm,
So there's not that many issues. But what I am looking into is I am looking into getting a license, but the licenses out there are so expensive, like
yeah,
$500,000 a year. And I mean, that's per year. So I can't afford $500,000 per year. So
yeah.
you typically, for artists like me, you have to go under somebody's umbrella that already has the license
Hmm.
and then go that route. But yeah, I typically use my screenshots, and I'm small enough now. I mean, I'm getting out there, but I'm small enough that I think Lucasfilm really likes um, their fans to be passionate, so they're really not going to
Right.
come after you per se with a cease and desist, not unless you're really
Hmm.
raking
Hmm.
in the funds and stuff. But yeah, basically everything is like from the movie. Is that
Yeah.
is what I use.
Yeah, it also seems to be that, I've been a huge fan of Star Wars fan films for years, even before YouTube. I used to check them out on these DVDs. Darth Maul was one of the first fan films made. It was really elaborate and huge. And back in George Lucas's day, not only they didn't go after those people, they had competition and yearly awards for fan films done for some. Obviously, you can't directly profit from it. You can't
Right.
sell it, right?
Right.
But even like on YouTube, unless you do something really, really drastic, they kind of foster because they're saying, thinking from it from a business aspect, is like, hey, if fans are constantly passionate and are reminded about these characters, like let's say
Right.
in the case of Book of Boba Fett, if the
Right.
show initially doesn't do well, but it's still out there on the streaming service, and X amount of years from now, some random artist reinvigorates public's eye to it through his amazing art, and fans
Right.
go back and start checking out and paying for Disney Plus, it works for them as well.
It's a win-win,
Hmm.
honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
But also talking in terms of those roadblocks, are there any kind of things that you hit a wall with clients, with people who asks you to produce the work?
Um, Basically it's kind of like the Photoshop. I would think that because the amount of hours, if I can't translate something that they are, really wanting, and then, or right now, I think one of the last roadblocks is the type of paper that I use. It
Hmm.
only comes to a certain size.
Ah.
So then I'm limited on how big I can create something.
Uh,
So,
and it might limit your clients, right? Because they want something huge.
right,
Uh,
right. And then that also, what I typically use is a paper from France, and it's thick like cardstock. And so I can't roll it. I have to ship everything flat. And
mm,
so that also adds to the shipping and the delicacy of it as well, because we're talking about pastel work, and
yeah.
what I work in is pastel that's like chalk. I mean, they make
Mhm.
two different kinds, oil pastels or
Right.
chalk like. And so every one of my pieces can actually, rub off or, smudge. So I have to take extra precaution of how I ship it.
Do you use fixing spray to like kind of?
I don't. And I
Mm,
have had a lot of issues with that. You're going to get your pros and your cons of that. And what I found is I shipped a couple of pieces to Austria. I
mm,
mean, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm overseas. This is great. And the client gets it and she's absolutely in love with it. She takes it to the framer, and the framer says, I'm going to fix it for you. I'm going to spray a fixative on it for you.
okay.
And the framer did that, and when he did it, he ruined it, because
Mm,
then the fixative altered the color, made it darker, and then made some of the spots thinner with the spray.
ah,
So then she takes a photo of it and she shows me, and she's like, oh my gosh, he totally completely ruined it. And I said, well, I can redraw it, because you know I felt bad for her.
yeah.
So she ended up contacting the framer, and he took out an insurance claim, repaid me for his damage, and then I ended up having to redraw it. But I had to explain that my drawings are like snowflakes. I mean, no
Yeah.
two are going to be the same. So just because I redraw the exact same thing doesn't
Hmm.
mean it's going to look exactly the same. But I ended up being able to make her happy. And she was actually happier with the second. I don't know if maybe that was because I'd already drawn it once and I'd already learned. And so then I was able to
Guys,
do it.
success story. We just we heard a success. So what's the pro tip for me? Let's say I got your painting. Is the best thing just put glass over it and just frame it?
So if typically what tend to, I'll send like a little instruction packet
Hmm.
with my drawing, and my drawings require being under glass, not plexiglass, because plexiglass attracts dust.
Right.
And then the mat, it doesn't need to be against the glass. It needs to have
Mm,
a mat. And then in between the mat, my framer sent me a picture of a dust collector.
mm,
So there's a dust collector that goes in between the mat and the art, because over time that dust will fall And so you want it to catch in the dust collector and you don't want it to catch on the mat.
Got it.
So I always try to include those instructions because sometimes my clients want to frame it themselves.
Yeah.
I don't frame or mat my work. I just send it because I think that allows the client to get involved. They know the specifics. They know what the mat they like. They know their aesthetics of their house, and then it just makes them feel involved, like they've
That's
helped.
really, really fascinating. That's something that I don't, consider on a daily
Mhm,
basis as I look just, oh, look, art piece.
mhm,
But it's really, really interesting to get behind the screen and see what's going on there. But
right.
what do you think? If you extract yourself for a moment from your own piece, to which extent your work reflects the customer and their particular personality?
Well, let's see here. If like, do I have a specific piece or
Anything in general, like when you look at a piece and say, like, huh, okay, I wouldn't think of that. That's coming from the client. It kind of shows me the kind of person. Maybe he's more into like war history, so it has to be a war piece with a lot of moving pieces.
I if I were to say that would have to be the Hoth scene that I had to recreate because it gave me a different view into kind of how he saw Hoth.
Mm.
That
Hmm.
that probably would be because usually most everything that I get from my clients is like a still
Hmm.
photo.
Hmm.
So this was actually something that I had to construct. And then he's like, and so it allowed me creative control, creative freedom on that. So,
Yeah, because the reason I asked that question is it's so interesting how differently people look at it. Like, for example, the latest show, Andor. Here I am discussing on a podcast with my friend how amazing that exchange, that dialogue it was, and how tense the music was, and how the cast shadows and how depressing the whole environment is there. And the person on Twitter would go like, "It's so boring. Where's the action?" And again, you can't call that person a dullard or stupid or any less of a Star Wars fan. It's just not what they're into. Like
right,
I want colors. I want blaster bolts flying different colors and cool Jedi doing backflips. That's what excites me. I'm there to see a circus act or something like that. Nothing wrong with that, right?
right,
But it's entirely
right,
different
right,
approach. So
right.
Star Wars fans have like so many different personality types out there. Um,
Exactly.
Michelle,
Yes.
I was fascinated with the collaboration that you had on your Indiana Jones piece. Not only we have your Indiana Jones art, but the person. Tell us the story. What happened there with the whole thing with the frame?
Okay. So that piece was done. I'm going to shout out Kelly from Props and Villainy.
Hmm.
He makes these cool mod pieces that are very Star Wars like. And so last year I met him and he does, and I don't know if I can go get this piece to show if I could step away for a second and bring this piece.
By all means.
Okay. Okay. So he built this piece for me and he makes, I don't know if you can see that. It's a Babu Frick and
Yeah,
he's frozen in carbonite. And Babu Frick was one of my favorite characters in the later of the what do you call them? They're not the sequels in
the
the
sequel
sequels.
trilogy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so I absolutely adored this character. And Joel Hazy from Hazy Customs sent him the Babu Frick, and then he put that made it to look like carbonite, and it's got little buttons on the side, and then it
That's an
talks.
amazing prop. It talks.
Yes.
Oh my god, this is what is the piece called? Cold as ice? Like what was the artist thinking? This is so heartless. Oh
Right?
my god, I love it. I love it so much. There's so much sarcasm going on there, like so much fun play. It's so tongue
Right?
in cheek. I loved it. But then,
Right?
yeah, but then the story continues, right? That's not the end of it.
Right. So he built that for me because he also does other pieces in carbonite as
Hmm.
well. But I said, hey, can you do a Babu Frick? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so he did that for me. And I said, how about this? I'll trade you. artist for artist deal.
Right.
I'll draw something for you, and if in exchange for that. So he asked for the Han Solo Indiana Jones, and it was such a cool collab, really. And I was able to do it, and again, I had to Photoshop the image and do the Indiana Jones image as well. But and then he decided to take his art, or take my art to the next level and complete it with his. He built this really cool frame for it. So it also has the side panels, and then when you press it, it also plays the Indiana Jones music as well.
Hmm.
And not only did he do that, then he built an actual cabinet that has some of the Indiana Jones memorabilia on it as well. So, I mean, he just took it above and beyond.
Yeah.
So,
Obviously, it's a play on fan theories, right? Because they always love to put Easter eggs in Star
yes.
Wars and vice versa, Indiana Jones from respective franchises, like the latest Andor show in that art gallery, right? They had the stones from the Temple of Doom, and not a lot of people caught it. I
Right.
usually don't look for Easter eggs. I'm just like, I watch things on autopilot. I don't analyze every frame, but
Sure.
I looked at it. That kind of looks familiar. Those are from my childhood movie. Like that's from Temple of Doom. I was blown away.
And then even in Indiana Jones, on one of the pillars, while he's opening up the chest, I was
Yeah.
trying to think of what the chest
Sarcophagus or a chest,
is.
something like that. Yeah.
Yes, and on the one of the pillars, it had R2D2 and a C3PO on there, so that
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
Yeah, I love those. Those are pretty cool. Um, have you considered collaborating with other artists in such a fashion, like in a larger way?
Yes.
Mm.
Honestly, like I have thought about reaching out to anybody. If anybody that's watching this podcast, if you want to do a collab with me, I think it would be cool to either just draw something, send it to them, and they can finish it,
Hmm.
or, something like that. Because I don't, since we live in a day, I'm so far away from everybody. That would be, I don't really know exactly how to do it,
Hmm.
but I'd be willing to figure it out though,
I'm
for sure.
thinking to myself, the quickest, most logistically sound way to do it is you do a pencil drawing, right? You scan it in. It doesn't have to be huge. If it's a good 300 DPI scan, you just scan a regular, print paper and you send it to somebody via email, and then they can expand it, blow it up on a canvas, and throw their own colors on it. It's almost like
Oh,
a
wow.
comic book collaboration, right? You have a penciler,
Right.
and then you have a painter.
So are you wanting to do a collab?
I'm terrible with the colors. I'll try. I'll definitely try. Like, are you good with pencil drawing? I imagine you are, based on your
Yeah,
art.
yeah, that would be cool for even you to draw something and I could color it in.
Ah, okay. I think I might be a little stronger in. You know what? That's actually
Yeah,
an idea. I haven't
right?
drawn in years. I suspect I said, you know what? We're gonna try. We're gonna do something, guys.
Okay.
We're gonna do something. But
All right.
I feel intimidated though.
No, no, are you kidding? This would be fun. Actually, one of the other things that I've done
Mhm.
is, and I don't know if you saw this, Ben, but I wanted to see what I could do with crayon.
Mhm.
And so I went out and bought the Mandalorian giant crayon thing, and I bought the largest box of crayons that I could find.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm going to make his helmet, and I'm going to show everybody that just because you have crayons doesn't mean that you can't do realistic.
Right.
And
Right.
I was able to do that. So
I
that was
believe
pretty cool.
I'm not thinking like on top of my head. I probably have seen it. I'm not 100% sure, but I might have seen it. Show it to me later, and I'll tell you exactly
Okay.
if
Okay.
I haven't.
Sure.
Moving on. Wanted to speak about your current sources of inspiration. I guess we're moving on to our next segment. This year we had quite a lot of shows that made the buzz. Right, the Stranger Things season 4 drop. There is the highly anticipated Lord of the Rings show, The Rings of Power from Amazon. We had She-Hulk, we have the Moon Knight, we have from Star Wars, and we had the animation Tales of the Jedi, which was kind of like, what is this going to be, like a shorter kind of endeavor. Then we had obviously the big elephant in the room, Andor show, and just released literally a couple of days ago, the Willow show came out. with
Hmm.
Warwick Davis coming back as the Willow himself. So what's out there that you're enjoying at the moment yourself?
Oh, anything. I did enjoy Andor. I'm on the other side. I thought it was a little slow,
Right.
but I still did. There were still aspects of it that I enjoyed. And then, of course, Marvel. I watched Wakanda Forever, so that was really good to me. And so since I'm doing that, then I'm starting on an Okoye
Mm.
piece too.
I'm
So
almost worried to watch Wakanda because the Black Panther is, I would say, by far one of the top three Marvel films of all time. It was so
yes,
good, and I
yes,
just don't want to feel it. Obviously, because of the situation that happened with the actor, where everybody
sure,
mourned his loss. Such a talented, beautiful actor, and then I'm like, are they gonna be able to repeat the same? Like, I don't want them to repeat the same storyline all over again, but just with a woman. Just do something different with it. Take her to a different territory. Give her a different kind of story. I don't know. I'm definitely gonna see it, but I'm kind of
sure.
worried a little bit.
I think you'll be surprised what they
Okay.
do.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I'll write my full, honest, one sentence review on Twitter. But when you're checking out a new show or a movie, what immediately draws your attention to it? What's the entertainment aspect for you? Is it the story, the visuals, maybe the action? Maybe you're looking for the art style first and foremost.
When I watched She-Hulk, um, I did like the art that they incorporated in that.
Hmm.
They did a lot of drawing. I don't know if you saw that
No, I
in
haven't
the
seen that show
beginning.
yet. No.
Oh yeah.
You could
So
spoil something. This is fine. Don't worry about it. I'm not gonna see
I
it.
I did like it, and then a lot too. I do like the music. I
Mm,
am such a music lover too,
mm,
so I did like some of the music. But I do, as far as the art aspect, that was pretty cool. The way they did the drawing at the end.
yeah.
They showed a lot of the art scenes, and I think they did that in the Mandalorian. How they did a lot of the concept
Right.
art
Right.
at
Right. Right.
that.
Yeah, that was
So
really really enjoyable. A lot of people were like talking about the credit point, that the end scene of the each episode. Like, oh man, check out the art. Look at the art. I'm just burned out on comic book heroes, to be honest. I'm pretty sure She-Hulk is probably amazing show, like a Moon Knight. All of my YouTubers like, Ben, you have to watch Moon Knight. Oscar Isaac is in it. I'm like, guys, like, chill. I need to take a break from comic book heroes. Too much.
I didn't really get into Moon Knight, but She-Hulk was a little bit better, but she tends to go into which I had no idea, but she actually goes into she breaks a fourth wall
Mhm.
a lot. So she did good. It was nice to see that they used the CGI character versus going out and hiring an actress
Mhm.
that is big and trying to make her do the Lou Ferrigno type
Right,
of
right,
thing.
right, right. Yeah,
So
it kind of makes sense. It's just I heard a lot of commentary on that CGI work, particularly some fans were favorable, some less favorable. But I'm like, okay. To me, it's at the end of the day, if the effect sells the performance, if you believe in the character, that's enough for me.
right.
I mean,
And I think you'll believe it.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Jar Jar Binks, when you saw him in The Phantom Menace, regardless how I felt about the story in the movie, he was a digital actor you could believe. I mean, for
right.
its day, the CGI was unparalleled. Nothing was even remotely close to it. You had something like in Terminator 2, where the Chrome Terminator, the T1000, shows up for a little bit. He does a little run, and it's back to the actor. It's back to the human being. Here, this
Right.
dude is standing there and he's performing in front of the actors. It's an entirely different affair. Um,
Right.
as one specific actor, I wanted to ask you about Andor, since you were the fan of the show. We have the artists in the show. We have Lucian Ryle, right, who is the leader of the rebels, but he's posturing as this art gallery owner, and that's how he interacts with his cohort, Mon Mothma, and that's how they do the deal so all the Emperor's spies don't get in on them. So
Mhm.
there's a great scene. Remember where he's like in his arriving to Coruscant, and he's like sober and dark, and then he puts on the wig. He completely transforms. He's practicing this very kind of like flamboyant art gallery owner. I was blown away, and I was thinking of you like Michelle is probably going to appreciate it because we have now artists being represented within Star Wars. I think that's a first for the franchise.
I believe so.
Yeah.
That was really cool. And I did like to scour the art gallery for the Easter eggs. I
Really?
did. I did. I saw Padme's um crown
Yeah.
right away. I was like, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's where that is." Yep.
All right. I don't
I did.
know if you are into games as much as I am, but there was an armor in the background. Did you know where that's from?
Are you talking the Mandalorian armor?
No,
That
no,
was in
no.
there.
No, it was there, but there was another armor, not Mandalorian.
Oh, the Shogun. Was that very Shogun-like?
So yes, so that is actually from the famous Force Unleashed video game, which was immensely popular. It was approved by George Lucas and had a huge following of fans about the Star Killer character. He was rocking that armor. And there's this part of the fandom was like, oh man, all these stories, they're no longer considered canon. We wish they came back in a way. When people saw that armor, people went ballistic. Is he real? Is he in universe right now? It's so fun how art interacts with audience, how like it hits right here.
Right. It does. It
Yeah.
does. Art is important.
Yeah.
Art is life.
Yeah. It's the cure, it's the meditation, it's like it just brings so much to any civilized culture. But do you
Yes.
ever feel inspired that you want to create anything for yourself outside of work? Because when I used to work in a game store and do certain things that are part of my job, then I wanted to escape all of that, go home and just do something for myself.
Gosh, I would love to do that.
Hmm.
But I am so busy. And every time I do a funzie that I think is a funzie, then it ends up selling, which is cool. But I was actually talking about this to a friend the other day, and I was like, you know how it'd be cool? I want to actually explore new techniques.
Yeah.
I want to take this paper that I'm working on because it's so versatile and I want to try
Yeah.
different things, but it just seems like I never have time. But yes, I would love to be able to do that.
Yeah, I imagine. But also quickly mention of any media that you also draw inspirations from outside of the obvious, television and film. We have comics, we have novels, literature, we have art galleries, maybe, or even documentaries. Like I mentioned, Light and Magic. Like, what other things do you draw upon?
Well, it's just that maybe the screen stills,
Hmm.
and then I do have books from from the show that talk about the art, so that helps as well.
Hmm. Gotcha. Next thing I wanted to touch upon before we start wrapping up, and at the end, I have a little tiny surprise here for you, just this small little tiny game that we could play for like literally 5 minutes.
Okay.
I wanted to just have you expand a little bit on your skills, techniques, approaches. You know, when I was watching the documentary, Lights and Magic, obviously a lot of that information I already knew, studying in the film school, watching every behind the scenes documentary, any DVD I bought, regardless whether it's Star Wars or not. If it has behind the scenes in there, I'm watching that thing, man.
Right.
And, these artists at ILM say that a lot of the problem solving for them and innovating the industry was just thinking outside the box, thinking in a new way, not necessarily changing their tool sets, but just having a different approach. So, how do you feel about yourself at this point? Like, is your skill set stable at this point, or is it incrementally growing, or is it exponentially growing based on the projects that you're currently doing?
I think I am always learning, always learning.
Hmm.
So back in the day, I would I would do my art a certain way, but as I approach each new piece, every time I get a piece,
Hmm.
it's the first time that I'm sitting down there. It's the first time that I'm looking at it. It's the first time that these colors that I'm bringing out, these colors are being put in this manner. And every piece teaches me something.
Right.
And so I think that I'll get these little Bob Ross happy accident moments. And so I'll be doing something and I'm like, oh, wait a second, that actually works. And so then I can incorporate that into the next piece and the next piece. And then I'm constantly, I mean, people say, man, I wish I could draw like you or do this. And I'm telling you, Ben, it is literally me drawing every day.
Yeah.
Working for myself, I do not take any time off, literally. Like I don't have Saturday and Sunday off. Saturdays and Sunday, those are still my work days. I mean,
Hmm.
I'll probably take a little, few hours break here and there, but I'm literally drawing every day. And when you are constantly putting paper to pencil, you're finding out different techniques.
Hmm.
Or I'll blend a little bit and I'm like, no, that color's not right. And then I'll be like, oh yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Or I'll just be, you know, doing something and I'll get these Bob Ross happy accidents and
Yeah.
I'll just file it away and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to do that on the next one.
Yeah.
And that's how I end up learning. But I approach every piece that I do as brand new as the first time that I'm looking at it. And this is, and you'll be surprised to know that I don't, when I draw something, that's the first time that I've drawn it.
Right.
I don't draw something and then crumple it up and throw it out. When you see this piece, when you
Yeah.
see these, that's the first time I drew that. That's the
Yeah.
first time I drew that,
Hmm.
you know. So
Yeah.
I think it's just me doing everything and learning and learning and learning from the next piece and on and on and on.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the drive and this persistence are the first characteristics, identifiers of an awesome artist, and you are an awesome artist. You know,
Oh,
when I got the honor of interviewing Greg, the great Greg Hildebrand, I can't believe it happened like twice.
uh-huh.
I can't believe I did. And I said, how did you and your brother define a generation of American illustration? How did you guys do it? He's like, Ben, honestly, like there is no secret formula. We just went out there and we did it day from day to day. And that's why I'm not an artist. I'm too lazy. It takes that amount of persistence, seriously. It takes that amount of hard drive to constantly hack away at it. And even when you have moments of frustrations, even when you hit the mental blocks, you're like, you know what? I'm going to solve this problem by arriving at from this angle or tackling from that side, or I'm going to ask for, you know, advice from my friend over here. I'm going to check out, you know, the resource over there. And that actually leads up into my next question. You know, we have, with the advent of technology, we have
Mhm.
all these great free resources right on the tip of your finger. And I was wondering, how do you pick up on your new skills? Is there anything out there in terms of online that you check out that helps you out on your way?
Oh, yes. So what I end up doing is, I mean, I can teach myself so much and doing it day by day, but then I feel like I get stagnant or whatever. It's like there's got to be a better method. So then I will go on YouTube and I will look up different pastel people and then I will watch their videos or whatever.
Hmm.
And then I will see, oh, okay, they're doing it a different way. Okay, I can try it and see if that happens to work for me, you know, that type of thing. But yes, as far as YouTube, that's where I usually
Yeah.
go and help teach myself.
Yeah, it's been a godsend for me too. I remember when I
Right.
was still working at my former job, my boss, Michael Aram, he's like standing over my shoulder. Ben, we need to do this. We have a model shot arrived with the jewelry on it. We have to refine her skin and retouch it so it looks magazine-like, right, pristine and
Uh-huh.
clean. Um, and my from the department, the head of the graphic design department comes over. Ben, you know how to do this? I'm like, nope. Right in front of my boss, I go to YouTube, 5-minute video, and he's looking at me like fascinated, like this kid over here is figuring this thing on the fly. That's what impresses people.
Uh-huh.
You're completely blank-minded over here, and 5 minutes later, YouTube, bah, 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 oh, skin separation. This is how I do this model. You know, adding techniques, and you just right there, you're on your way.
Right.
And then you
Right.
incorporate it into your workflow. You start using it in new creative ways, and your mind explodes with
Yes.
ideas.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's what's helped me a lot is that I can teach myself so much and then I need a little more of assistance. So then I'll just go and YouTube search things. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there that, you know, incorporate color pencils on top of
Hmm.
the pastels. But then in doing that, then you learn that you can't get pastel to stick on top of color pencil. So then
Right.
that inhibits everything. So it's all a learning process out there.
Yeah. Michelle, as always, it's really, really fun talking to you. I have like you're a kindred spirit. We talk about art without, and I'm super happy to have you. And I think we should do this more often than once a year. I think it's
Heck yeah, of course. Of
right.
course.
But before we take off, I remember those questions that I prepared for you. I promise. So it's
Yes.
basically 5 random stupid questions. Don't take them seriously. Just answer them however you want. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Question number 1. Emperor Palpatine calls you to court and he orders a commission of his portrait. On a scale from 1 to 10, how worried are you with pleasing him?
I'm not. I do my thing. I am good.
Okay. All right. So
Because he wouldn't have asked me because he can see into the future, correct? So then he knows what he's doing. So he already knows he's going to be pleased, correct?
yeah, he says I could foresee the future. I mean, he couldn't
Right?
foresee his Death Star blowing up, but that's what he claims. He's like, I'm satisfied with your painting. But I appreciate the boldness. Question number 2. If Indiana Jones became Han Solo, would he still smuggle spice, which is drugs in Star Wars, or black market stolen art pieces?
I think stolen art pieces.
Right?
That's what I say.
That's
yeah.
I was wondering, like Indiana Jones, because what Harrison does with both characters, they're drastically different. He does play a lot of charismatic heroes, but he's not a typecast actor. Like he transforms literally, right? And Indy is nothing like Han.
No. And then he also has played the president. So I mean, everything that he's ever done has been very believable. He is not a typecast type of person.
And then he plays a rich asshole. He gets shot in the head and transforms and becomes a beautiful human being. What was that movie called? J.J. Abrams, I think, co-wrote the script for it. I keep forgetting it. Something about Harry. Right?
Yeah, I've not seen
it's
that.
Awesome, awesome film. I showed it to my parents. They were blown away. Both of my parents are huge Harrison Ford fans. Not as much as Star Wars, but just his acting in general.
Cool.
Next question. You're invited to a Jedi temple teaching younglings Art 101. What do you make them draw?
Man. What do I make them draw? Wow. I would probably do a landscape.
A landscape?
Yeah.
Of Coruscant, probably. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever they could see outside the temple.
Right. Right. Because you can't get anything, they can't attach to anything because that's not the Jedi way. So it'd have to be something, it can't be a portrait because that shows love, right? That shows attachment.
That's so depressing. I have not thought of that.
So it'd have to be something that's visually interesting, but they can't have any attachment on it.
You're making it such a loaded question. I feel bad now. like, oh my God, that's a philosophical question. Right? I was just like goofing around. Wow. Yeah. So it is depressing, right? Because they can't form it, and that's the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, that he didn't have the loved ones, the family that he needed. Wow. I feel
that's why I think I would be a Sith. In the Sith, I form it too much attachment, or I'd be a good Mandalorian.
Now we see why the Emperor would hire you. He already saw that seed of evil, right? He's like, she will kick ass with that portrait. I want 10 by 10 feet.
Right, because I will put my attachment in. I'll put my love in it. I will.
Right. The passion of it.
My passion in it.
Makes sense.
Exactly right.
Michelle, you're making my questions way more interesting than they were originally intended. Next one is a somewhat indecent question.
Okay.
So 2 stormtroopers walk inside a bar. One of them has a helmet off. He's like a 5 out of 10. Which one do you hit on first?
Oh.
Try to make this difficult.
Probably the one with the helmet on.
So you take a risk.
Yes.
I'd settle for 5 out of 10.
Well, because there was something about the Mandalorian when he had it was all about the mystery.
Right.
For me.
Right.
You heard his voice. The very first thing he speaks is, I can bring you in warm or I can bring you in cold. And I was like, oh man, it was like, yes. And then you were, you never saw him remove it. And then when you finally saw it, then I was like, oh yeah, I can get over your face. Your voice is cool.
Put on the helmet. We good. We good. Just let's stick with the baby over here. All right. No wonder you can't have a wife. Like, you just be like a solo man for the rest of your life. We're being mean. What do you think of Diego Luna? Actually, is he a handsome fella?
I do. Yes,
Hmm.
I think he is. I think he's handsome.
Yeah, I think he channeled a lot of those like emo kind of like vulnerable feelings in as Cassian Andor, because he's very
Yes.
silent and the boiling silent rage, quite
Yeah.
different from Mandalorian.
I like the relationship between Jen and him.
Yeah,
Finally, at the end, when she's talking and he says welcome home to her because she
yeah,
finally gets,
yeah,
she's home with her people,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. And it's no nonsense, lovey-dovey relationship. It's just people,
Right.
adults relating to one another.
Right.
Final question. Uh,
Okay.
Grogu, also known as Baby Yoda, wants to go to a mall. So what brands or outlets do you take him to?
Froggies are us.
Is that a real thing? I don't know.
No.
Froggies are, or build a bear, or build a Grogu or something.
Build a frog, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I think from out of all the questions I asked, I think I like your younglings and the art style painting answer the most. That hit me hard. I did not think of it at all. See, this is the way the artist's mind thinks.
Right. Because art for me is very personal.
Yeah.
You get like I get so attached to my drawings
Hmm.
that it's really actually physically hard to send them.
Yeah.
That's how I feel like they're my babies. So when you ask that, and I know the Jedi way, how they think,
Hmm.
I was like, it's got to be something that's not personal that
Yeah.
they can just,
Yeah.
do.
But let's not get depressive and remember that you have a bright future with the Emperor. It's like, the painting is great. Michelle, it's been really, really awesome to have you. I would love to do this again. Guys, obviously, I'm
Sure.
going to drop all the relevant links where you could check out Michelle's art and also get commissions from her. She does awesome
Yep.
stuff. You've seen some behind the screen there. You could see more at her website and stuff that I'll link you to. Thanks a lot for checking us out, Michelle. Any last words, and we'll part here.
May the force be with you.
Take care, guys. Thank you.